بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق أجمعين سيدنا محمد عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين وبعد. So first of all, I need to thank you all for coming. Jazakumullah khairan. We ask Allah to accept your efforts, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put all of these efforts in your balance of hasanat. Those in the back, you can hear me, right? You can hear me? Okay. Inshallah, next time we will be having the microphone working, inshallah. Brother Ali, Jazakallah khair, he said, I'm a very good speaker. I don't think that's true. But we'll try to have nice discussions, nice chats, nice fights. And we'll try to challenge some of our intellectual perceptions and thoughts that we always get and change by the life goes. So it's an open discussion based, actually, this course, because it's an introduction and you need to know more about the things that we want to study and we want to know more about. Few points we need to clarify at the beginning. Number one, he mentioned that this is not the first of its kind. Maybe in English, in that setup, it's a little bit new, but we've been doing this for a long time in Arabic. So we started maybe 3 years ago or more. We started with introductions, the same course in Arabic, and then we've taught maybe 8 to 9 courses, if not more. Grammar, Arabic grammar, logic, fiqh, Islamic legislation, Islamic law, level 1, and then now we teach in level 2 and fiqh of finance and family law, some tajweed and Quranic recitations, multiple other courses on multiple Islamic sciences and fields. And this series of Al-Majlis, that we call it Al-Majlis, is aiming for the same thing. That we're going to start with introductions, and then we'll, inshallah, hopefully, we'll keep going with the rest of other courses that would cover most of these sciences and fields, inshallah. Number 2, the reason we call it Al-Majlis, it's an Arabic word, for those who do not know the word, it's an Arabic word that has a kind of a symbolic meaning referring to this traditional concept, visualized concept, the way the scholars would teach ilm, or would teach knowledge to people, is that the scholarly assemblies, as they used to call it, Majalis al-Ulama, that the assemblies or the sessions, the big names of scholars we had in history used to have in mosques or then universities and schools, open for everybody. That's why we call it Al-Majlis. So we're trying actually to reconnect between the tradition and history and our modern time. This is one of the main goals of this course, is that how can we reconnect or bridge between the tradition and the way our ancestors actually understood and perceived the religion of Islam, and how can we understand it? Not exactly the same way they understood, but how can we use the same tools they used to understand the religion and the sources of this religion, which is basically the divine revelation that we're gonna shed light on this too. So this is one of the main goals of this course, inshallah. So it's fundamental, and it's in the biggest part is intellectual. It explores the thoughts that we have about multiple things when it comes to knowledge and religions and practice of the religions. It explores a lot of knowledgeable tools, the way you read a divine text and the way you look at it to be applicable and flexible in every time and everywhere. This is basically the way, inshallah, we're trying to incorporate in this course. Point 3. I think 3. I'm not good in numbering, but I think that's 3. So I'm sure, and we've seen that in the registration forms, that we have multiple backgrounds. And we have a little bit variant ages too. We have a little bit young people, young adults, and a little bit older, ammus and khaltus, or the uncles and the aunts. So everybody's welcome. The content fits for everybody, for sure. It might be a little bit advanced on some points, that might be a little bit challenging, but you take it as a challenging intellectual thought more than something that you just want to put an effort to understand, right? And this is something that we will discuss in detail, that sometimes we want to take our religion lightly, whereas in the same time, we are very willing to spend a lot of efforts on other stuff too, right? So sometimes when people come and ask questions about what does Islam say about this, or he goes to the imam and he asks him like, is this halal or haram? And if he's trying to educate him on the thing, he just doesn't want to listen, because just give me the answer and that's it. While he can and he's willing to spend a lot of efforts and other things to learn in his life because they have a kind of direct benefit to him. right? If he's living in a society like this and he needs to know more about the tax system, for example, he would study this in detail, right? And he would know exactly every single thing because now it's something that touches his pocket. So he needs to be very careful understanding every single thing that would concern him when it comes to taxes. But when it comes to his act of worship, which is Islamically, or something that is much more important than your money, he's not in the same willingness, the same level of willingness actually to learn or to know more about this religion. Just we want a quick thing. We want the drive-through knowledge, as I call it. Just give me this to-go thing and halal, haram, okay or not, and that's it. I don't want to spend long time to learn about my religion. We need to change this concept a little bit. So we're out of different backgrounds. I think maybe you have some non-Muslims, right? Some people were maybe introduced to the religion or to Islam, or maybe just they're getting to know more about the religion, which is fantastic. The course is not literally an introduction to Islam, it's introduction to the tradition. So it's basically an introduction to the way we understand the religion. So it's a little bit different, and we'll talk more about this, inshallah. So based on all of these premises, as Brother Ali mentioned, commitment is really expected, inshallah. Seriousness is expected too. It's a knowledge setup, so we need to be zealous and motivated all the time that we want to seek knowledge. It's not just like we're attending a nice talk and discussions and then we go. We need to build on this, so inshallah we can continue with the path of knowledge. Number 4, there may be some terminologies that you're not familiar with. So feel free at any time just to raise your hand, ask me questions. Or if you don't want to, for any reason, you can talk to me later after class or in the break. We're going to have breaks, inshallah. And then you say, I don't understand this term. Sometimes I might say, I will try my best to translate every single term in English. Sometimes I might forget. You can remind me, please. But even the term in English is not clear to you, you can ask about the definition of the term, and then we'll make it, inshallah, clear to you as much as I can. Number 5, questions are welcome anytime. Questions or like discussions or comments, complaints, objections, anything is welcome for sure. And we really want to have more of this because, again, the nature of this course is not only I'm lecturing you on some things, it's a discussion based, as you're going to see, inshallah. So before we start, any questions? No?
How long do you expect the course for the day?
It's 1 hour and a half to 1:45 minutes, inshallah. Okay, including the break. Right? Okay. Today we're going to have a break by Maghrib prayer. It's 7:10. Okay, so 7:10 we're going to have a break, almost less than 1 hour. And then we'll continue after prayer for maybe 20 minutes or more. And then we'll be concluding, inshallah. Any other questions? Beautiful crowd, mashallah. That's actually very easy. Okay. Something I really wanted to mention at the beginning and then I forgot is I really need to thank the volunteers, Jazakumullah khairan, and all the team who helped have this course happen and helped with the setup too. Brother Mustafa, Brother Abdul Malik, Sister Maryam, Sister Lina, Jazakumullah khairan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept their efforts. And the Al-Majlis Arabic team, they have helped us with like organizing this course. So Jazakumullah khairan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept all of their efforts, inshallah. Without their efforts, we wouldn't be able to do anything, seriously. So we'll need to thank them and make dua for them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts their efforts, inshallah. So the first lecture today is an introduction. So the whole course is an introduction, and the first lecture is an introduction to the course itself. In pursuit of knowledge, or introduction to like seeking knowledge. We'll try to cover these 4 questions. Why do we learn? That's number 1. And then, if the answer is positive, hopefully, the following question will be, what do we learn? And then, if the answer is positive, hopefully, will be, how do we learn? And then, what do we do next? This should be the order of the questions, the logical order, basically, of the questions that we want to address, inshallah. Again, how do we learn? What do we learn? Why do we learn? And then what do we learn? How do we learn? And then what do we do next? Like after learning, what should we be doing? So that's the first question that I want really to address with you. Why people learn? We all try to join schools to get a degree, and we want to learn. I'm talking about learning in general, not learning something specific. Why do people learn? And I mean people, regardless of Muslims or whatever their religion is. Why do people learn? Yeah.
Personal satisfaction.
Personal? Satisfaction. Okay. Self-improvement. Amar? To get knowledge. Curiosity. To become successful. Okay.
To lead a better life and be better worker.
Okay. Personal development. Okay. This ayah on the slides, Allah is saying in the Quran, وَاللَّهُ أَخْرَجَكُم مِّن بُطُونِ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ شَيْئًا. Allah, God has brought you out from the wombs of your mothers knowing nothing. Right? That's your state once you are born. And then He gave you hearing, sight, and heart, which is basically minds. A lot of places in the Quran, this is the meaning, that you might give thanks. وَجَعَلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَالْأَفْئِدَةَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. So your initial state is that you know nothing, right? And nobody questions this. And then He gave you things that we call senses, the parts or the limbs of the body. And then you use them at a certain point of your life to start gaining things, right? And perceiving things, concluding things, deducing things, based on these senses and skills actually He gifted you with. So that happens to all human beings. So it's something natural. Someone mentioned curiosity, just something natural. We tend to know or to need to know about things that we didn't know of. When you hear of a word that you don't know what is the meaning, sometimes at least you feel curious to know what does that mean. What does this term mean? I want to know more about these things. And then it depends on the level of curiosity, because some things you are interested in and some things you're not. And here comes the differences between human beings, right? So that's just the general initial state of human beings in general. When we look at it, we should look at it from two different angles. So human beings actually seek knowledge or learn for all the reasons that you mentioned. Whether it's curiosity, it's the innate yearning to discover, the capacity of human intellect, experience in life, the joy of learning. It's a reason by itself. And then when it comes to a Muslim, he should have other goals added to the previous goals that we just mentioned. So all these reasons you mentioned are valid for everybody, including Muslims for sure. But Muslim actually should have another flavor, basically, for these reasons why I'm learning, why I need to know about these things. So I know that, again, I'm satisfying, as you said, I'm satisfying this innate or fitra in me. And then there are other goals that are more important to me, actually, which is pleasing God, which is knowing about Allah, which is knowing about my deen, which is the people of knowledge are always praised by Allah. In the Quran is full of this. Everywhere in the Quran, you'll find a praise for the people who seek knowledge, who learn, who give thoughts, who give reasoning, who think, who reflect. A lot of these ayat in the Quran are about this. The only thing Allah asked His Prophet Muhammad to seek the increase of was knowledge. وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. He said, say, my Lord, increase me in knowledge. That was the only time in the Quran when He told him, seek the increase of something. Imam al-Qurtubi, one of the famous exegetes or mufassirin, the ones who explain the Quran, he said that. He said, if there was something that is more dignified, that is more honorable than knowledge, he would ask him. He would have asked him actually to seek the increase of. But there is nothing more honorable than seeking knowledge. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. He said that in the Quran. I've never created jinn and mankind except to worship me. So Abdullah ibn Abbas, one of the early exegetes, one of the early mufassirin, who was one of the companions of the Prophet, and he explained the Quran. He said, إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, except to worship me. That means except to know. إِلَّا لِيَعْلَمُوا. And then he said, we view knowledge that every field of knowledge should lead to God at the end of the day. Regardless of the field, regardless of the major. It should lead somehow to God, which means to your connection and to your relationship with God. So, it's the heart and the centric thought of every single Muslim, basically. We always brag about being the ummah of Iqra, the ummah of read, as the first word to be revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. First time the angel Gabriel came to the Prophet ﷺ, he told him, Iqra, read. And we know the story. He said, I cannot read. And then he kept telling him, read. He said, I cannot read, because he didn't know how to write and read. And that was so interesting, because God knows that he doesn't write or read. But he revealed the first word of a long scripture to be read. Until the third time, he told him, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Read by the name of your Lord, the one who created. So we Muslims usually brag about this, that we are the ummah, the nation of read, the people of read, the people of reading, right? But we need to reflect more on this word. You need to understand the context of this word. What was the situation of the Prophet when this word was revealed to him? What was his profile in society when the angel came to him and revealed that word to him? Someone who's living in the Meccan society, in Mecca at that time, he is from like a middle class, didn't have really a big educational background. Financially, he's a well-established, basically. He's married to a very famous, beautiful lady, Lady Khadija. She was very rich and very renowned in the community, and everybody respects her. He has some business, so he's very well-known in the society. That was the context. Everybody respects him. People used to respect him because he was well-known to be a Sadiq al-Amin, the honest and the trustworthy. And then God revealed to him, Iqra, read. So that tells you something is missing, right? If he was good in general, why did he reveal to him, read? And if the revelation, the only purpose for revelation was just to worship and to dictate certain legislations like pray 5 times a day, pay donations, fast in Ramadan, and that's it. So why did he start with read? If he is good in most of life aspects, so there was no need for that word. But that tells you there's something is missing. He doesn't want him to literally read the letters, the sentences, the grammatical structures. He wants him to change the lens he's looking at this universe through. This is what we want to do in this course. What is the lens that we put on our eyes to see this life? Imam al-Ghazali, the famous Muslim philosopher, and scholar, he commented on this ayah saying this. He said, reading is of 2 types. Qira'atu qira'atan. We have 2 different categories and types of reading. Reading the written revelation, which is the Quran, the wahi that we had through the Prophet ﷺ, and reading the seen revelation, which is the universe. Seen, al-wahi al-manzur. So you have a written form of revelation and a seen form of revelation. Reading in this ayah encompasses both. Because you interact with both. You don't only interact with the written one. قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَانظُرُوا. When this ayah comes in the Quran, walk on earth and see. See here is different. Doesn't mean just use your eyes to see. There's a difference between al-basar wal-nadhar. There's a difference between look and see. At least in Arabic. There's a difference in English too, but it's much deeper in Arabic. That he wants you to dissect things. Every single page in the Quran, there's something to do with knowledge. Praising people of knowledge. God has given himself the attribute of knowledge too, right? One of his attributes is al-alim, right? That sifatul ilm, the attribute of knowledge. Or al-alim. It's actually kind of an exaggerated form linguistically of that one. Like he is the most knowledgeable, subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the Quran, أَفَلَا يَتَفَكَّرُونَ أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ. Don't they give reason? Don't they give thought? Don't they reflect? It usually, like this praises the people who do not give thoughts on things, who do not consider the consequences of things. He tells you that, انظروا, look, see, it means to dissect the exploratory of things. It wants you to apply all of your faculty of the intellectual capacity to understand and perceive things. He's telling you in this life, you're not only like sitting on a bus and you're taking a tour and someone actually is pointing out to things and telling you that's a nice museum, that's a beautiful building, that's a good scene. No, he wants you to interact and engage by yourself and figure out all these things by yourself. By pushing you to learn and to know. To know what? It starts by knowing Allah, by knowing God. To know God. And then to know yourself. And to know the aspects and the components of the human beings. The inner components of human beings. وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. And in yourselves, you do not think. And then he would tell you, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. The people who know are equal to the people who do not know. And then he doesn't answer the question because it's not a literal question. It's a metaphorical question that for sure know. Because the ones who know are in a much higher level than the people who do not know. A lot of traditions from the Prophet ﷺ, like praising the people of knowledge and pushing Muslims to seek knowledge. And in the Quran also, Allah said, يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. Said Allah raises the ranks of the people who believed and the people who were given knowledge, ranks and levels. So he linked it between both, faith and knowledge. You cannot have faith without knowledge, right? And we claim that knowledge should lead you to faith. This is what we're trying to build here. So the first one is almost an absolute premise, that you cannot attain faith without knowledge. That's impossible. Allahu la yu'badu bil jahl. You cannot worship God by ignorance. You have to know Him. If you do not know Him, how come you want to worship Him? If you do not know Him, how do you want to pray and raise your hand and say, Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest, and then you're reciting things and you're talking to Him? You don't even know Him. Whether on the level of practicing the religion, which is these practical things that you apply physically by your body, or the thoughts, or the beliefs that you believe in God with. That's kind of the reason why people in general seek knowledge, and the Muslims actually seek knowledge too. It's you need to associate these two parts together of satisfying your own actually curiosity and needs, and then the Muslim, the way he views his life through the prophetic lens. So knowledge is actually both a human need and a religious obligation. The Prophet said, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ. Seeking knowledge is an obligatory. In one version he said, male and female Muslims, for sure. Okay, the second question will be, what do we learn? So we have three main points that we need to discuss here. Number one, a very important concept that says what every Muslim must know. There are things that every single one of us has to know. And when we say it's a must knowledge, that means you are responsible for seeking that knowledge. And you gotta be held accountable for seeking this knowledge. And we'll define that. And then the branches of knowledge, we'll try to explain the knowledge map. What is knowledge? What are the different branches and fields of knowledge? And then what are the principles of each branch of knowledge? So the first one, what every Muslim must know, the must knowledge. The summary of the answer of this question is in one hadith. Have you ever heard of the 40 Nawawi hadith? Can we see hands, please? Okay, so it's one of the very basic traditional books that I think we all need to connect with. It's all just a hadith. A hadith means the prophetic traditions. And one of the imams was Imam al-Nawawi, one of the imams in the 6th Hijri century. He just compiled 40 hadith. He said at the introduction, I wanted to gather or collect 40 hadith that are describing and explaining the basics of this religion. This is what these 40 hadith are about. We call it the Nawawi 40, but it's not his own hadith. He just collected them, that's it. But it's attributed to him because he's the one who put them together in that order. He said, those are the hadith that would shape your identity as a Muslim, basically. They're enough for you to know the biggest part about this religion. Specifically, the first 10 hadith, for example, almost every single one of them is big part by percentage of understanding this religion. The commentators or the scholars who explain, they would say the first one, the scholars used to say that's the third of the religion, the half of the religion. That's almost all the religion. It's very short, a hadith, very concise, but very comprehensive in meaning. So the second hadith in order of these 40 was this hadith. We call it Hadith Jibreel. It's a little bit long. We call it Hadith Jibreel because it's a story. The Prophet ﷺ one day is sitting with his companions. It's a famous hadith, but we need to shed more light on it. He's sitting with his companions, and then they said, Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second great caliph, he narrated this hadith. It's an authentic one for sure. He said, a man came to the Prophet while we are sitting around him. Nobody of us knows him. And he's wearing a very nice white cloth. No traces of journeying or traveling appearing on him. But nobody knows him. Nobody can recognize who's that person. With a very black hair. He described him physically in detail. And then he said, so he sat down in front of the Prophet. And he put his knees just parallel to his knees. And then he put his hands on his thighs. And then he started asking him questions. And the first question, and he's speaking loudly so everybody can hear the conversation. The first question, he told him, tell me about Islam. So he answered with the 5 pillars that we know of Islam. He said to testify that there is no God except Allah and that Muhammad is his prophet, pray, fasting, paying zakah, the obligatory donation, and making pilgrimage or hajj. So he told him, Sadaqt, you're right. He told him, like, you've spoken the truth. So the narrator of the story, he said, we were shocked. يسأله ويصدقه. He's asking him and then he's telling him, yes, you're right. Then he told him, tell me about Iman, which is faith. So he told him the 6 articles of faith. That you believe in God, you believe in messengers, you believe in books, you believe in destiny, you believe in the hereafter, and you believe in the angels. Then he told him, Sadaqt, you've spoken the truth. He's actually confirming the authenticity of the answer. Then he told him, so tell me about Ihsan. And there is no one precise synonymous to this word. But you can call it perfection, you can call it purification of the heart. It's a very broad meaning. So he told him, is to worship God as if you can see him. Yet you cannot see him, make sure he sees you. And then he asked him about the signs of the hereafter. And he told him a few signs about the hereafter. So he asked him 4 questions, right? He asked him about Islam, asked him about Iman. Islam is the name of the religion, basically. Iman is the faith. Then he asked him about Ihsan. We'll describe this more. And then he asked him about the signs of the hereafter, and he gave him like a couple, 3 signs about the hereafter. We want to discuss the first 3 questions, right? Which is the Islam, the Iman, and the Ihsan. If you want to map out this hadith or break it down in multiple perspectives, we can do it this way. So Jibril's questions are these 3 ones, and then everyone has a purpose, right? There is a purpose behind each one. Why did he need to know about Islam? Why did he need to know about Iman? Why did he need to know about Ihsan? And then there is a core science that explains this aspect to us. This hadith basically summarizes all the religion, by the way. This breakdown, it's almost, you can perceive the whole religion through this hadith. So there's a core science that would actually explain and not literally translate these 3 questions. Then there is a certain human component that each one of the 3 deals with in this life. And then there is a certain thing in you that would affect. This is the breakdown of Hadith Jibreel or the Hadith of Jibreel. When we talk about Islam, it's the practice. When we talk about faith or Iman, it's the belief system Islam has. When we talk about Ihsan, it's the manifestation of both in your heart. Okay? Again, Islam is the practice. Practice entails your physical effort. Your physical effort has to be translated and manifested in your real life, which is we claim to be imaratul ard, maintaining and building this earth. That's one of the main purposes of life to Muslim, is to build and maintain this earth. One of the meaning of being a successor of God, as he said, إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً, when he decided to create human beings and to have them live on this planet, he said Khalifa. Khalifa means a successor to himself. So he created you for a certain job. He didn't just create you and leave you like this. He wanted you to do something specific. One of these main purposes is to build and maintain this earth. That's for the practice, which is the physical part. And the Iman, it's your world of thoughts. How would you believe in Him? How would you know Him? Knowing Allah Himself. And then Ihsan, how would you purify your soul and heart? Okay, in order to know these 3 things, to be able to answer the questions, we need ilm, we need knowledge. And we need certain fields or sciences that we'll use to understand this. So when we talk about Islam as the practice of the religion, which science do we need to answer this question? So now we're going to count 3 different sciences, right? One science will answer the Islam question, one science will answer the Iman question, one science will answer the Ihsan, which is purifying the soul question. So Islam, the practice, the physical practice, basically, which science would cover it? Okay, so again, there were 3 questions asked by Jibreel alayhi salam. He told him, what is Islam, what is Iman, what is Ihsan? So we want to break down the answers of these questions to understand how can we apply them in our life. So before answering them, you need to know the purpose. Why do I need to know about Islam or Iman or Ihsan? So for these 3 purposes that we agree on to be part of the identity of a Muslim, how to live this life prophetically, the way the Prophet wanted you to live it, physically and practically, What are the world of your thoughts? How would you organize your thoughts to view this life, which is the lens we mentioned in the introduction? And then how can this manifest in my heart, in my spirituality, basically? So we need ilm to know these things. And there is certain ilm, there is certain branches and fields of knowledge that would answer these questions. So when it comes to Islam, to the practice, which science would cover this? Fiqh. The Islamic law, basically, or the law in general. Because the Islamic law would tell you how to pray, how to fast, how to make financial transactions, how to build a contract, how to get married. All the practices that you need to have in your life are well explained and detailed in the science of fiqh. We call it the fiqh, which is the Islamic law. When it comes to knowing God and knowing about your creed, the aqidah, the Islamic theology or creed, and then purifying the soul, the tazkiyah, the purification of the heart. It got developed to be a ilm, to be a science by itself. There is a single lecture on each one of them, by the way. So we'll talk about every one of them in detail. So these are the purposes, and these are the core sciences that are covering these things. Okay, each one of them deals with a certain human component. So the practices deal with your body, right? I want you to do physical things. You need to make the ablution or the wudu this way. Wash your face, wash your hands, wipe over your head, wash your feet. Now you can pray. Otherwise you cannot. You cannot, which means your prayer will be invalid. So it deals with your body, right? It's the practice of the religion. But when it comes to the aqidah, the creed, for example, what does it deal with in your human components? The brain, the mind, the aql. And when it comes to the tazkiyah, the heart. The reflection of this in your spirituality. Body, mind, heart. And subsequently, these things will have to affect three things in your life. It deals with your actions, which is the Islam. It deals with your thoughts, which is the Iman. It deals with your feelings. Basically, in a kind of different way of defining feelings here in that context, which is the spirituality. So Islam, Iman, Ihsan. Building and maintaining the earth, knowing Allah, purifying the soul. The sciences that we need, fiqh, Islamic law, aqidah, Islamic creed or theology, tazkiyah, the ilm, the science of the purification of the heart. The human components, body, mind, heart. And nothing is left. This is all you, right? And we need to know the three of them. And then it's going to affect your actions, your thoughts, and then your feelings. This is the way we address this. Okay, so that was the first point under the second question. The second one is the branches of knowledge, the knowledge map. This is just a kind of a general idea of what are the different branches and sciences that we have. Before counting the different sciences that we have, we need to understand what is the centric thought that comes to the mind of a Muslim when he views the different branches and sciences. Okay, so we view the knowledge map as that the revelation is the center of this map. Everything branches off this. Not necessarily as the source of the science directly, but it's the thing that you are driven by to look into and dig deeper into this science. What I mean by this is, you can understand if I'm telling you wahi, revelation, is the center of the knowledge of the Shari'i or the Islamic sciences, right? Because basically the Islamic sciences are dealing with the wahi directly. But when I'm telling you wahi, which is the revelation, is the center of your thought when you are studying medicine, when you are studying physics, or any other field or science, right? So the question here is, you are studying medicine, for example. Do you have any doctors here? Or med school students? One? Okay. Two? Okay. So when you are studying medicine, for example, you are in a med school, and you are now in a med school. And then you have a lot of different colleagues. Some of them are Muslims, Christians, Jewish, atheists, whatever. This background of being a Christian, of being an atheist, for example. Okay, let's say a Muslim and an atheist to be more easy. So Muslim and atheist, they both are studying medicine. The outcome of this is the same for both of them. They're studying the same thing. They're taking the same course, the same age, same background, from one country, one race, whatever. They're brothers, basically. But one of them is a Muslim, one of them is an atheist, and you both are studying the same thing, the same course. The outcome of both will be the same. Okay, the answer will actually, there has to be an explanation for your answer. So be careful before you say yes or no.
What do you mean by the outcome?
What?
The outcome.
The way they're going to apply this knowledge
It's different.
is different. Okay, not just to apply, the way they will perceive the knowledge. The way they will conceptualize the concept of whatever course they are studying. Yes?
Maybe the intentions for like why they're becoming doctors are different. So that's gonna affect everything.
Okay. So how are they going to affect? How the intentions will affect that?
I'm not saying this is always the case, but maybe somebody who's doing it primarily well, while the person who's doing it, to help people. So the person that's doing it to help people is gonna look at the patient as a human being that they need to help.
Okay, that's right, but there might be also a kind of materialistic difference between both outcomes. That's kind of a self-spiritual thing. I have a good intention because I believe in God, I want to please Him, I'm helping people, I'm getting a reward, right? It's all related to the unseen things. That there is a hereafter, I will be rewarded because I'm serving humanity, that's good, right? But that's in the theme of the spirituality of the person. But when it comes to the actual practice of that science itself, like will it be affected by these two thoughts? Yes.
It's going to be the same because both got the same knowledge and they're practicing the same criteria.
Okay.
So I think it would be different because, for example, if there's a good outcome or a bad outcome, depending on what the outcome of, let's say, the patient is, one might be able to explain it. So let's say there's a bad outcome. One might say...
There is what? Sorry?
If there's a bad outcome, let's say somebody dies or somebody gets sick and they do unwell. So the Muslim might say, we tried our best, but this is from Allah. Whereas the atheist might say, somebody failed, or the system failed, or the science, this is the scientific explanation, blah, blah, blah. So it would be a little bit different. I think the interpretation would be understanding of how things happen.
Okay, but it's not necessarily, we're not necessarily talking about the outcome to be good or bad, but you say the way you interpret the outcome itself. Okay, sure.
I think also the way they both build their ethics around the practice.
Their ethics?
Their ethics. So depending on what they believe in, that is going to affect their ethics and the way they practice medicine.
That's true, because why do we have all these discussions about mercy killing, organ donations, all these other things? They're all driven by ethics and religion sometimes. But forget about the religion. They're driven by a certain way of thinking of the human body. So the way they view the human body is different, right? Because someone has a background that actually controls his view of the human body. The other one, no, it doesn't. He doesn't, basically. So, or he might not have. So, because some people might not like this. Yes. That's right.
During the learning process, when you learn the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you learn the body itself cannot be created, someone has created it, when you learn the function of it, it really will give thanks to the creator. So your learning process, during the learning process, you will be thankful and you will know why you are giving him thanks. And your output will be also different. In that way will implement. I mean, you will have shukr, you will have thanks to the Almighty.
Okay, Jazakallah khair.
I think it reinforces each person's biases. So, for example, if I'm going in as a Muslim, I will use this knowledge to maybe reinforce what I believe in as a faith in God. This is God's creation, how it's made when it comes to science and biology. As an atheist, he might use this as knowledge to prove that everything is biological and purely physical. There's no divine or bigger aspect to it.
Okay. I think because I picked the medicine example, so the distincts or the actual differences might be a little bit clear. But if we pick physics, for example, would it be different?
Almost similar.
What?
Almost similar. I mean, here also you are working with the materials.
Theoretical physics. Theoretical physics.
Yeah.
Will it be different?
No.
Why? Why just in medicine it was different?
Depends on the contents and the application, how and apply. That's the main thing. If the content is same, I think the outcome should be same.
Mm-hmm.
But application, the field of application, and the other phase comes after. So when you combine these two, the application is comes after.
Okay, biology.
The general content, general output should be same.
Okay, if we talk about biology, can it be different?
No, it's the same.
Same with physics or medicine?
Both the physics and biology.
Same, yeah.
The laws remain the laws. The laws of physics remain.
No, but you see, there's a difference when it comes to medicine, right?
Because there's a human.
But no for physics or biology. That was your answer?
For physics, there's no difference.
There is? There is no difference. Okay. Okay. Same for biology?
I mean, strictly speaking of the science of biology, it's the same. But if you involve the human component or the application of it, for example, engineering might be different versus physics. Biology will be different versus medicine. I mean, it's just my opinion.
Okay.
I think it's different. I think because physics you're still, if you're a Muslim, you're still understanding that there's something that's built the universe, as opposed to somebody who may be atheist and just believes that it's something that's just happened.
Okay.
I think in anything the Muslim learns or gets to read as a new science, he sees Allah in it, he sees the miracle of creation of Allah and creating. So we learn from the different perspectives of understanding anything.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to discussion. So, I mean, I didn't reveal my opinion, but I mean, the answers are pretty accurate. And on purpose, I didn't give the example of engineering because some people know that I have problems with engineers. So if two engineers get in the lab together, one of them is Muslim and atheist, is there a difference? No, in engineering, no. Because they both are not doing something to humanity. So, sorry. The problem is one of the organizers is an engineer, he's a PhD in engineering, so I need to be respectful to the field because I need him. So, when we mentioned that center of the map, so now we're going to break down the map. When we mention the center of the map, when we say revelation, again, with the previous definition of revelation I mentioned, that is both. Not only the Quran or Sunnah, right? So when you see now the map, don't just make this direct link between Quran and physics. I'm not saying this. I'm saying this is the centric thought that comes in the Muslim's mind when he's studying these things. So this is the divine revelation, the wahi, and the universe. Then we have the Sharia sciences, which is the Islamic sciences, basically. And then the language, the linguistic sciences, the natural and applied sciences, and the humanities and social sciences. These are four main categories of ilm, or of knowledge. Most of the sciences, or if not all of the sciences, they have to come under one of these four things. Okay? Just this is one way of categorizing these things. This is not the absolute truth about the way of view knowledge. You might have or find multiple other maps or breakdown of the knowledge map, but this is just one simple way of looking at it. Quick example. So the language circle, or the language circle of knowledge, like you can divide them into two main parts. One part is actually concerned with the rules and the structure, the syntactic authenticity of the language and the structures, grammar, morphology, meters, orthography, etymology. All these things are related or concerned about how do we struct the linguistic structures in our speeches. Or consider with the beauty and the style of your discourse, the style of your speech. Literature, rhetoric, poetry, calligraphy, composition, or other sciences can come under these. This is just a quick example. The humanities and social sciences. Examples: history, psychology, sociology, philosophy, geography, arts, law, economics, politics, anthropology. These things come generally or under the humanities and the social sciences. Natural and applied sciences. There is engineering, alhamdulillah. So engineering is a science. That's a surprise. So is it applied or natural? Applied, alhamdulillah. So the PowerPoint is correct. He didn't even think about it. It's just okay. And then the Islamic sciences, which we need to focus more. So don't worry, we're just here. We're not going to talk about the rest of things because I don't know about them. Okay, when we view so now we have 4 circles, if you can view that. Inshallah, we might be sharing these slides later. So when we have the Sharia circle, we have sources, right? That we deduce and understand these things from these sources. And then we have some fundamentals, which is the fundamental ulum, the fundamental sciences that we want all of our research in Islamic sciences to lead to. Okay? So the sources that we have is the Quran, which is the divine book that was revealed to the Prophet, and whatever sciences that go around the book. And the Hadith and its sciences. Hadith is the tradition of the Prophet ﷺ. The reports and the stories that the Prophet ﷺ delivered to us. These sources, we deduce from them 3 main ulum. These 3 main sciences are the answers of the questions of Jibreel, right? The fiqh, aqidah, tazkiyah, Islamic law, creed or Islamic theology, and the purification of the heart, right? Sources sources are the sources, and then these fundamentals are the outcome of the sources. Okay, how can we process this? How can we come up with these 3 branches out of the sources? We need tools to do that. These are examples for the tools. We need literature to know this. We need rhetoric to learn this. We need morphology. We need grammar. We need usul al-fiqh, the principles of fiqh, the principles of the Islamic law. We need logic. We need a lot of things. So basically what happens in the mind of someone who understands the religion, he is using these tools to dig into these sources to come up with these 3 fundamentals. Is it clear now? Again, I'm using all these things in the bottom, multiple, they're just examples, there are more. I'm using them as tools. So when I'm reading the Quranic text, for example, I'm using literature to understand how the native speakers of this language were speaking, so I can understand the structure of this ayah or verse in the Quran. I need rhetoric to understand the concept of the literal and the metaphor. I need morphology to understand things about the history of human beings, for example, to understand I need sociology to understand some of the Quranic stories about the previous nations and peoples before us. I need grammar for sure to understand the structure of the verses themselves, etc. Right? I need logic to understand to how can I organize my thoughts and use authentic premises. And not just these tools, by the way. Can I need or use some sciences from the previous circles that we taught about to understand the sources? Can I refer to medicine, for example? Can I refer to biology? Can I refer to physics? All these things to understand the sources? Can you get an example?
Biology.
Okay.
For example, to understand the state, because in the Quran there are certain stages of human creation.
Hmm.
So, for example, for example, so if you can relate to biology, you can understand confirmation or the key.
Okay. Another example? Can you give an example for something we practice? Yes. Okay, say your answer.
Like history to understand the context of the source that came down and why it was important for it to come down this way or why it was said this way.
For sure, yeah. So we have something we call it asbab al-nuzul, the occasions of revelation. So if we study the history of Arabs at that time, we would understand the verse more sometimes, right? If the verse is actually related to a certain incident that happened. So history might be important for this. Okay, so again, we have sources, the 2 sources, Quran and Hadith. We have the fundamentals. Those are the goals of the one who's researching in these sources, and he needs tools to do this, which are like these examples we mentioned. Okay, the third thing is, there are principles of knowledge. There are principles of each science of these sciences. So some of the Muslim scholars, they invented a beautiful theory about how to introduce people to science, to any science in general. By the way, there is a problem with the translation of ilm to be a science. It's not an accurate translation, but we use it because it's just commonly used. But the translation of ilm is not science. Science is a certain particular field of knowledge, but it's not the knowledge. So anyway, we're going to use it as just an easy translation. If you want to study anything, how can you be introduced to that science, with that ilm, with that knowledge? Any knowledge, any field, any branch. You want to study Islamic law. You want to study Islamic finance or finance in general. You want to study medicine, engineering, anything, and you want to be introduced to this. So they invented a beautiful theory. They called it the 10 principles theory. Al-Mabadi' al-Ashara. The 10 principles, the 10 introductory principles to sciences. And they compiled it in a couple of poetry as usual in their style of documenting knowledge. إن مبادئ كل فن 10 الحد والموضوع ثم الثمرة وفضله ونسبة والواضع الاسم الاستمداد حكم الشارع مسائل والبعض بالبعض اكتفى ومن درى الجميع حاز الشرف. Okay, so they said these are the 10. This is the breakdown of the couple of the verses of poetry. So they said you need to know these 10 things before studying anything. So you need to know the definition. You need to define the thing that you want to study. Said it's illogical to study something and you do not know the definition of that thing. So define that science you are studying. What is the definition of medicine? What is the definition of Islamic law? What is the definition of grammar? Define it first before you study it. And then what is the subject matter of this science? Al-Mawdu'. And then what is the fruit that you will gain out of studying this? Because it might be fruitless. So you don't need to study it. It might not be suitable for you personally. So there is no need to study it. What is the merit of this science among the other sciences and fields? That's important. What are the relations? And when they say relations, the nisbah, they mean this science in which part of the knowledge map that we just explained? Is it under the Shari'i knowledge, under the linguistic, under the applied science, the natural science, whatever? Who is the founder of this science? You get a brief history of the science. And then the name, what is it called? What is the title of this knowledge? It's called medicine. Okay, so now you know the name of the title. Some branches have multiple names or titles. What are the sources, al-istimdad, the sources of this knowledge? Where did it come from? And then the ruling, and that's the Muslim aspect of it. What does Islam say about studying this knowledge? Is it okay to study it or is it not okay to study it? And usually the common question is there any science that we are not allowed to study? If we say حكم الشرع, he said حكم الشارع, which is the shara. We said the ruling. What does Islam say about studying this? That might imply that there are certain sciences that you're not allowed to study Islamically. Is that true? Like what? What? Magic. Okay. I didn't hear it, sorry. Evolution? Okay, it's not allowed to be studied? Oh, the belief is different. We're talking about studying it, regardless of what you believe in. So he said magic. Why magic is not allowed to be studied? What? It's okay to study magic? Okay, why? Because what? It's in the Quran? Okay. Quran didn't say that studying it, it's kufr, but it said that the people of magic, they do kufr. Right? I'm not stating my opinion, by the way. I'm just discussing. So why is it haram or like illegal to be studied in Islam? Okay, any other examples other than magic? We'll come back to magic. Yes.
Another example, but building a base, maybe the concept is that any knowledge that brings harm to others, brings evil or negative, would be harmful.
Brings harm potentially, or absolutely it brings harm?
Brings harm.
Right? Because it might be just a double-edged sword, so I'm going to use it for something good. I'm going to study magic to figure out the magicians, what they do, and then I can actually stop their evil. Right? Some people might claim that. Because if you do not know what magic is, how can we, stop it or overcome the problems that magic would bring to people? Mm-hmm. So that's good, but that's a different answer. So that means it depends on the way you use it. You might study any science and you use it in a bad way, so it's going to be haram, right? So we're not talking about how you're going to apply or use the knowledge. We're talking about the fact of reading a book on this knowledge, for example, or attending a course teaching this thing. So any other examples other than logic? Astrology? Okay.
I was going to say horoscopes, like your prayer won't be accepted for 40 days or something.
Okay, so astrology is haram? Some people are laughing. I know why they're laughing, but
Not all forms of astrology are again, it's the same basis again, it's how you apply it, because it was used to travel, sailing, at night. So again, it all comes down to how you use any knowledge.
okay. So the way I'm applying astrology will affect the hukm, the Islamic ruling on it. If I'm learning the ship sailing thing as people used to do back in the days, that's good. But if I just want to foretell things that will happen in the future, that could be haram. So that doesn't mean that it is haram to be learned, right? I'm Aquarius, by the way, just a side comment. But it might be haram though, so yes, say. Can we have one conversation, please? Yes, say that again.
I think any knowledge is allowed to be studied as long as it doesn't affect your stance on belief in a negative way.
For sure. So that means there is no haram science. Okay. Jali. Yeah.
Well, personally, as you said, I don't think it is to not study. It's just how you use it, as long as it affects you, or to any negative effects to you or your learning.
Okay. I may have a very strong counter argument to all of this when I mentioned engineering. So studying engineering, I don't know if it's halal, but okay. Any other thoughts on this point?
Which is beneficial, which is study, which is not beneficial for the mankind.
We can make this as the rule, as the qaida. Yes.
What about philosophy and that area?
Oh, that's a question you were asking.
No, I'm saying what about philosophy? Should that be to study that being our own thing? I know people who've gone into philosophy and they conclude that Muslims only.
That's a good point. I don't know the answer, but that's a good point. I mean, we're going towards answering all these questions, but that's a good point too. But I think most of the thoughts that were mentioned are about the consequence of studying that thing. So, right? Some people study philosophy to be strong in the way they establish the Islamic theology. Some people study philosophy and then they get lost and they deny God, right? Both study the same thing, right? So it's a little bit like not absolute, just a little bit relative. The third question is about if you remember the first 4 questions we're answering, the third one is the methods. How do we learn? So we'll take a break to pray Maghrib upstairs in the Musalla, and feel free if you want to grab coffee or snacks, and then we'll continue inshallah. So hopefully we'll take only 10 minutes for that break to be able to finish earlier inshallah. Thank you.